Hey guys, James Jamison here. I've got a quick little how-to on this. What we're working on today is this camshaft position synchronizer. This is a 97 F-150. It's got the 4.2 liter. That truck right there. So the first step is to remove the engine. Okay, seriously, you don't have to remove the engine. Obviously, I'm replacing this engine, that engine, with this one here. So one of the things I had to do was pull this out when I pulled the timing cover to reseal all that. Now this can be a very easy job or with the right tools, or it can be a very frustrating job if you don't know what you're doing and you don't have the special tool. Now first let's take a look at the special tool that makes this job super easy. Okay, so I have this OTC 6469. I will link that down below. This is the tool for installing the synchronizer. Now this is possible without this tool, although I don't recommend it. This was 35 bucks on Amazon. Well worth it, and especially if you're doing this more than once, well worth the aggravation saved in that tool right there. Let's talk about some of the things that we're going to want to remove in order to gain access to the synchronizer. First thing you'll probably want to remove is the this whole intake setup right here. And this end will be on the throttle body. This end will be where the air filter's at. Once the air filter hose is removed, you're probably going to be looking at this. This is the lower intake manifold. This EGR valve here is going to be right above where you need to access. So most likely you'll want to pull this out of the way. You've got a couple of bolts here that you'll want to take out. As well, the hose attaches here on this side. EGR pipe will screw in right here. This is the exhaust manifold on the passenger side of the truck. So that EGR pipe right here, that's what it looks like. Just unscrew that from the EGR valve right here. And that is about all that I can remember that is in the way of this cam synchronizer. Now this thing's very long, and then it has an oil pump drive shaft in the end of it, which comes all the way through here down into the oil pump, which is right here. There's the oil filter. So this thing has to come straight out and straight up. So anything that's in the direction above this will need to be removed so you can pull this straight out and then install the new one straight in. Okay, let's talk about some preparations that you'll need to do. The procedure states that you need to put this in top dead center, #1 compression stroke. In order to do that, this is the harmonic balancer or the crank pulley. This is what's on front of the engine, right there. Boop, 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 right there. So there's a couple things we can look for here. So if you turn this over, you can see some marks here. You have a 10, a 0, 20, I think that says. So what we want to do is we want to rotate the engine over until this 0 lines up with this arrow here on the front of the timing cover. So here's your crank pulley right here. You'll turn the crank bolt clockwise until that 0 matches up with this right here. The crank sensor bolts right here, so it'll be coming down like this. I'll put that on here in a second and we'll see what it looks like, so you can get some sort of frame of reference, because there's something else we can look at just to verify we are at top dead center #1. Okay, so as you're rotating the crank pulley clockwise, when you start coming up on the compression stroke of #1, you can come over here. This is #1 cylinder here. So if you're looking at the front of the truck, which is right here, you'll come over here to the passenger side. The very first cylinder is #1. So spark plug would go right here. Now if you put your finger over this as you're coming up on the #1 compression stroke, you'll feel air coming out of here. So if you're doing it like this, you might want a helper, because trying to do this with one hand here and one hand there, it can be a little bit annoying, especially if the engine is in the truck. Another thing you can do, you can take a hose from a compression gauge set. You can pull the valve core out right here, Schrader valve. Screw this in. Screw this into the spark plug hole, and then you have a nice flexible point that you can put your finger on and feel the air coming out. So this is another verification point to help know that we're on the right stroke, the right cylinder, and the right point. So we have the 0 on the crank pulley that lines up with that arrow. We can put the finger over the hole, feel the compression. So that's 2 verification points. And then we have one more verification point. I'm going to assemble this slightly and we'll show you what I'm talking about. Okay, back at the engine here, we've got the crank sensor right there. I just installed that loosely, and you can see how it points down here towards where the crank pulley lives. Okay, I have the crank pulley here just loosely sitting on there. The bolt is still in there, so it's not going to go on all the way. But here's what you're looking for. You're spinning this over clockwise here, right? We talked about the 0 lines up over here with this arrow. Okay? Now here's another indicator. If we look here at the reluctor, or the tone wheel here, you'll see this gap. So if you count 6 teeth over, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, when this is in the right position, this 6th tooth will be in the very center of the crank sensor right here, in the very center of it. So we count them over, 6 teeth from the gap. This will be in the very center of the crank shaft sensor. So with all these indicators, we know we're in the right spot to remove the synchronizer. Now I've already drawn a mark right here, and I suggest you do the same. This will make assembly a no-brainer. So mark here on the base of the synchronizer, as well on the base here where it mounts on the timing cover. Okay, now we're ready to remove the bolt. Of course, you'll want to disconnect the connector here and remove this 10mm bolt. With the bolt gone, you can go ahead and pull the synchronizer up and outward. Okay, now this synchronizer is still good, so I'm obviously reusing it. However, if you're replacing this, what you want to do is you want to transfer the mark that you made onto the new one. So you can see that the connector is in this direction. There's the hole right here, and the mark is going to be, and the mark that I made, of course, is right here. So on the new one, you'll find this hole. Here's the connector. Find the hole. There's the mark. Make your new mark on the new synchronizer. Okay, so let's take a look at the synchronizer. This is the oil pump drive shaft that I was talking about. This just pops out, like boom, pops out. There's a little clip in here. You just give it a good yank and it'll pop out. And this probably, the new one will probably not come with this drive shaft here, so you will reuse that. Okay, so here's the drive shaft. If you look here, I got the old oil pump. Now, when this is all installed in the engine, that shaft will slide in here into that hole on the oil pump, like so. So, as that spins, it pumps the oil. So the camshaft will turn this gear right here, which will turn the cam sensor inside of here. Also in turn, the oil pump will spin, obviously not in 2 directions, just one, and it will pump the oil, and all is good. There's your oil filter for reference. So this is what happens inside the engine in one direction. Alright, so the next step on your new synchronizer, or your old one, whatever, you want to remove the cam sensor with these, just by taking these 2 bolts out here. This is a 5.5mm socket, so we'll just undo those and proceed to the next step. Okay, let's take a look at this. You can see inside here in the synchronizer, there's the cam sensor there's the synchronizer. You can see this little half circle shape as well as this notch here. And if you look at this, you kind of see a mold of it in the opposite direction. You got the half circle here, you've got the notch there. So what you want to do is rotate this. So you'll rotate this until you're able to install that tool into there. Okay, for reference, you can see this is where I made my mark. So the cam sensor is going to be facing this way, the connector is. I've got my half moon in that direction right there. And look at this tool. We want this notch right here to be in that opening right there, as well as this half circle will come up and complete this half circle. So you can see that was a little tricky to get in there. It has to be pretty much exactly on, or else this tool does not want to slide into place. Once it slides and clicks down fully like this, this will not move. This gear is locked. You can't move anything. This is exactly in the position that it needs to be to install back in the engine. Alright, now we are ready to install the new/old synchronizer. Make sure that you have your special tool in place and it's not moving. It's fully seated, as you can tell. So line this up as straight as you can. Pay attention to your marks here. What you're going to want to do is slightly offset the mark here on the synchro to that, so towards like the intake manifold. We'll just kind of rotate it that way and then start sliding it down. This will want to rotate when it engages with the camshaft. So you can see right there, they're not lined up, so I need to pull it out and go a little bit further back. There we go. Fully lined up. Tool still installed. So at this point, we can put this hold down bolt back on it. We can now remove the special tool and install the cam sensor. Note the position of the cam sensor, how the connector faces here towards the driver's side of the car. Okay, that's it guys. You have successfully installed your cam synchronizer and cam position sensor. Next step is to reinstall the engine in the car and everything that you took off to get to this point, and you are good to go. I will leave some links below to this tool right here, as well as anything else that I think might be useful. So check the description below for all that good stuff, and thanks for watching.